Affairs analyst as we walk through the front pages. Good morning, Mr. Kintobi. I'm not sure which you're celebrating more, Nigeria's win or England's win.
The girls did us proud yesterday. I mean, I don't think that can compete, anything else can compete with that, especially coming back from 2 down to where pretty much everyone had assumed it was a done deal and it was over with. And they overcame adversity and came from behind and did us all proud. I don't think anything can compete with that today in terms of good news for Nigeria.
There you go. I mean, everybody has something to cheer, and that's great. That's the power of sports. But let's go into politics, Mr. Kintobi. I hate to just spook the party. But New Telegraph is where we're starting off with this morning. And yes, politics is still in full gear, and we're not in 2026 yet. Talk more 2027. And that's how New Telegraph leads 2027. Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, Kwankwaso, others gearing up for epic battle as scramble for Buhari's 12 million votes begins. They can try, but odds favor Tinubu, Tanko Yekesai. Coalition won't work unless North allows South access to power. On Anuju, pages 2, 10, and 11. 3 pages, Mr. Kintobi, on inside the New Telegraph today. I don't know, much ado about this, or this is inevitable at the end of the day. And this talk around 12 million votes, is it ever going to go away?
Well, what is interesting is that political activity is picking up this early in the day. We are still 2 whole years away from the general elections, and things have picked up so much momentum already, which is unusual, especially in a second term of an incumbent or an incumbent running for a second term. Usually it's almost a given that the incumbent has a massive advantage over everybody else, to where the competition is generally lukewarm, especially if the incumbent is viewed as performing admirably. So for this to have started this early, first of all, there are a number of powerful players. Like you said, there's the president himself, there's former Vice President Atiku, who's tried several times and wants to continue to try. There's Peter Obi, who did well in his last outing and who has maintained a major national presence, which is what Atiku has failed to do over the years. This time, since 2023, Peter Obi has stayed in the news and has kept himself relevant, and seemingly he'll be a force to be reckoned with in 2027 as well. Then there's the Kwankwaso factor for the Kano votes, which, as we know, in the last election, all of Kano, which holds the largest number of voters in the country, all of Kano went for NNPP. So if any of the players can actually win Kwankwaso over and garner his votes, that will give a major head start to anybody. Then there's the X factor of late President Buhari's 12 million votes, which have been a lock for whatever party President Buhari was representing. Those 12 million votes have been a lock for him since 2003. So the question is, will those 12 million votes dissipate and go in different directions, or will they remain a homogeneous block that will go in one particular direction? Well, President Buhari is not here to guide them. He's not here to motivate and inspire them and push them in one direction or the other. So the question becomes, is there a rallying force, especially in the North, that can galvanize those 12 million votes and make them all head in one direction? I'm not sure that I see anybody with the charisma or with the kind of loyalty-inspiring character or personality that President Buhari had, that was able to hold that voting bloc together. But if anybody could poach those 12 million votes, any of the players, it would definitely make a difference. But the one thing that's clear is that 2027 is going to be very keenly contested. And I think that speaks probably to the vulnerability of the incumbent, that the political gladiators sense that he may be on the ropes, to use a boxing term, that perhaps public perception in terms of the economy, particularly insecurity, that those things make him vulnerable. Otherwise, you wouldn't see this degree of passion and fervor to try and displace him starting this early down the road, especially with the power of incumbency, the vast treasury and resources at the incumbents' beck and call. Those kind of things generally discourage competition, especially when the incumbent is going for a second term. But to see this degree of people throwing their hats in the ring and really wanting to I mean, look at even just the coalition. There are 3 or 4 avowed contenders. There's Atiku himself, there's Amechi, there's potentially Obi, even though Obi is now starting to waffle within that coalition and may eventually make his way out of there, because I think he's starting to see that perhaps the whole thing is already rigged in Atiku's favor for him to be the coalition's candidate. We don't know. But I've heard some things come out of Obi recently that makes me question whether he's going to stay in that coalition very long. So 2027, the game is on. Definitely it will be an epic battle, a battle of epic proportions. And I think at the end of the day, it's up to us Nigerians. I think we're a bit too apathetic about being engaged in the political process. I think it's up to the electorate more to be more engaged and more active and more present and more conscious and more politically aware and educated for us to be the ones to make the final decision about how that battle is going to play out.
All right, maybe let's go to the next paper. A similar thing is going on the pages of the Nigerian News Direct. Kwankwaso not defecting to APC, will contest 2027 presidency. NNPP Chieftain insists claims of alliance with Tinubu are fake, according to Onu. Says visit to Villa was for event, not political talks. So that's scramble yet again, that claim. Right now, what is going on is a political hot hair. Everybody trying to see how they can liquidate the other as far as perception and imagery is concerned, while the borderline work is ongoing underneath. But Mr. Akintobi, just as an outlier to the conversation, perhaps even within the centrifuge, if you allow me, is if we get back to that table again of the 4 that contested the last time, with a 4th distant and then the other 3 contenders, is there anything strategically different from them?
Well, see, ordinarily, competition is good. Competition gives a lot more options. Competition lets everybody brace up and do their best. But in this particular case, competition is bad for the opposition, because what it does is it fractionalizes the votes. It marginalizes each individual. So Kwankwaso strategically has a key role to play, but by declaring and running for presidency himself, he doesn't have what it takes to win it on his own. He's going to rob the coalition, or whoever is going to represent the coalition is going to rob them of his voting bloc. And yet at the same time, he doesn't have enough to scale the hurdle, as we saw from President Buhari over the years, that in spite of his 12 million votes, until he collaborated with other elements that were able to deliver other parts of the country to him, he couldn't win. I think Kwankwaso is bedeviled by the same issue, that it's okay to have all the votes in Kano, but you don't have national spread. I don't think anybody outside of Kano knows much about Kwankwaso or has any knowledge about his political beliefs, his ideology, what he has to offer, or who he even is. I'm sure if you go to some hinterland in the southeast or Kitikpupa in the southwest or some areas of the middle belt and you mention Kwankwaso's name, some people have never heard of him before. So the question is, how badly do people want the incumbent out of office? How badly do we want a change in Nigeria? If it's bad enough, then the major players will all subjugate their individual ambitions and come together in which the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. If you look at the collective of a Kwankwaso, an Obi, an Atiku, and even an Amechi, and you aggregate their supporters and their votes, they could unseat the president. But I think individually, if all 4 of them were to find platforms and run independently or independent of each other, I don't think any of them could even compete or even come close to the president. So when you talk about strategy, and Kwankwaso saying he's not defecting to the APC. He will contest the 2027 presidency. He'll probably do it as NNPP. He will make a showing like he did last time, but it'll just be a drop of water in an ocean. It won't make a difference. So the question is, how badly do we want to change the current administration? If we want it bad enough, we know what to do.
Well, indeed, Mr. Akitobi, the president will rejoice over the division. He had said in the past that he's happy about the disarray in the opposition, and he wouldn't, do anything. He wouldn't help them to put their house in order. Let's see how fast the opposition figures will learn from the 2013 APC merger experience. But let's take a breather from politics now and go to this Nigeria. This Nigeria takes a different, chose a different path and, looks at the economy. 21 trillion naira loan approval. Go softly on borrowing, experts tell National Assembly. And there are a few insights there. It raises hope for accelerated development. Lawmakers defend action. Opposition disagrees, says it's bad for Nigeria. Of course, we also heard that coming through from the NNPP over the weekend, the concern about the excessive borrowing. But what's it for you, Mr. Akitobi, knowing that other economic indicators, are telling a different story about the direction that Nigeria is headed, even though it hasn't trickled down to the people at the grassroots?
The thing about borrowing is that borrowing inherently is not a bad thing, provided you've done your due diligence and you've run the numbers and you see that you can pay it back without paying. Borrowing in and of itself can accelerate development. The problem with borrowing in the past, and let's remember, we complained about borrowing in the past administration, and this current administration has outborrowed the last one by about tenfold. Although, of course, the devaluation of the naira played a role in that, but in real dollar terms, the current administration has actually outborrowed the previous one. And even then, we're crying about too much borrowing, too much borrowing, too much borrowing. And here I fault the National Assembly, because I think the National Assembly is supposed to ask the tough questions. What do you need this money for? What are you going to do with it? What value and benefit will it bring to Nigeria, as opposed to just rubber stamping the request? That is why there's so much negative perception about the National Assembly, because whatever the president brings before them, they seem to just rubber stamp and sign and approve. They're not asking the tough questions. So this 21 trillion naira loan, what do we want to do with the money? I have always said that borrowing is not inherently a bad thing, provided, first of all, it goes for the purposes intended. Too much of the past and a lot of the cases you see in the public domain today with the EFCC, the ICPC, the SFIU, all of those cases are related to pilfering the public purse. A lot of that money, a lot of those resources were borrowed, and the money never went towards what it was intended for. That is the biggest calamity, not the borrowing in and of itself. Because remember, the lenders themselves will do their due diligence and make sure that you can pay. They don't want to lose their money. They want to get their money and get their interest. So they've already run your credit check. They've already checked your cash flow and your income statement to make sure you can afford to repay. They've checked your collateral, which in our case is usually very easy because it's just oil that we use, and we forward sell the oil, and they've done their geographic and geometric studies to see how much oil is underground. Is there still enough oil underground to adequately make sure they'll get the money back? And the answer is yes. So they're quick to throw money at us because they know they will get their money back. So that in and of itself, the fact that the lenders are willing to give it to us should already tell us something, that means the country has the ability to pay it back, because no lender, especially internationally, is that naive or simple to the point of not confirming that they can get their money back plus interest. So the fact that the loan is available to us tells me that we can afford it. So what is more important is for the National Assembly and every other responsible agency to make sure that the money goes to do what it is intended for, and that it isn't siphoned, it doesn't leak, a snake doesn't eat it in a cupboard somewhere, and you know, all kinds of funny things don't happen. That to me is the issue. Let economists go ahead and debate the propriety of borrowing versus, you know, there's an argument on both sides. You just like the law, economists will always, you always find people on one side and enough people on the other side, some saying this is good, some saying it's bad. Let them carry on with that debate. But the point for us is that as long as the money is having an impact, a positive impact on the people of Nigeria, are we seeing its effects on the streets?
And that's really at the core of the National Assembly's oversight function, as you mentioned, Mr. Kintobi.
Yes.
But since we're talking National Assembly and the nation's capital, Abuja Inquirer also has something very interesting that you'd expect will cause a lot of debate and controversy in the coming days and weeks. 20 years after Wike revisits sale of FG houses in Abuja, sets up committees to clean up records. But you see, opposition figures are claiming that this is a political witch hunt. But just for mention, because of time, Mr. Akintobi, there's a page 2 story on the front page. It's in green, actually, just on top of 20 years. You see, 2 core members win in skirt row over NYC, gets 10 million naira in damages. So, well, there's been a lot of debate about this. Allow people wear, if they want to wear skirt, allow them wear skirt for NYC. If they want to wear the trousers, allow them. So it looks like things might be changing, at least properly, in the coming days with this court win. Some have said way to go, allow them. In fact, there's the hijab conversation and all of that. I just wanted to mention that so people get an update on that particular story. But this is where we draw the curtains, Mr. Kintobi. I hate to keep you for much longer because we could go on and on. But it's always a pleasure having you walk us through the front pages. We've been speaking with Mr. Dayo Akintobi, Public Affairs Analyst, on a newspaper review this morning. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.
My pleasure always.